Nobody in mainstream media had the nerve to print this first, so I will. In the last 72 hours, while every major entertainment desk in America hid behind the word unconfirmed, Beyoncé executed the single coldest power move modern music has ever witnessed, and she did it without uttering one syllable in public. Those rooms, Beyoncé erased Rihanna from the inner architecture of Roc Nation, quietly, methodically, and with a level of precision that should genuinely frighten anybody who has ever underestimated her. In those 9 haunting words Jay-Z whispered to A$AP Rocky, the 9 words the gossip blogs have been gnawing on for a month without ever swallowing the real meaning, finally decode themselves. Because Jay-Z was never cautioning Rocky about some rival man circling his partner, Jay-Z was cautioning Rocky about the woman Rocky promised to stand in front of. Say it with me and let it echo. Beyoncé did not lose a friend this week. Beyoncé removed a rival. If that sentence just rearranged everything you thought you knew about this story, do 3 things for me right now. Smash that like button, lock in your subscription, and send this video to the one person in your group chat who has been yelling about the Beyoncé and Rihanna situation since spring. Because what comes next is not a theory scraped off a fan forum. What comes next is documentation. A guest list, a seating arrangement, a human resources memo, a string of tiny, bloodless executive decisions that look like nothing in isolation and look like a coronation massacre when you line them up in the order they actually happened. And once I line them up for you, I promise you will never read a headline about these 2 women the same way again. I want you to know something before we go any further. I did not touch this story for 3 full days. 3 days of stacking photographs next to internal dates. 3 days of overlaying red carpet timelines that nobody else thought to compare. 3 days of calling every thread and pulling. And every time I laid the evidence flat on my desk, the same image assembled itself. One crown, one tower, one penthouse at the very top of the building that Sean Carter built, and a husband frozen in the middle of the floor, watching 2 of the most powerful women alive drift toward a collision he has spent 21 years pretending would never come, doing what he always does at the exact moment history asks him to speak. Nothing anyone can hear. So to understand the freeze, we have to rewind, all the way back to the final week of July, to a private dinner in Bel-Air. 12 seats, 12 handwritten place cards, and one name that sat on that guest list at noon and had vanished from it by 7 that evening, Rihanna's name. No courtesy call, no explanatory text, no assistant dispatched to soften the blow, just an untouched chair where a self-made billionaire mother of 3 was supposed to be dining, and the hand that allegedly picked up that pen and sliced the line through her name, according to voices currently murmuring through Roc Nation's own corridors, did not belong to Jay-Z, it did not belong to a publicist, it did not belong to a security team, it belonged to Beyoncé. And the second that single detail clicks into place, every other piece of this puzzle stops behaving like a coincidence and starts behaving like a plan. Because for 20 years, the public was sold a postcard, 2 superstars, 2 fortunes, 1 family umbrella, a sisterhood so impeccably photographed, so carefully portioned out to magazines, so lovingly staged for award show cameras that the entire world simply filed it under fact. Beyoncé and Rihanna, the twin pillars of the Roc Nation dynasty, and not one outlet wanted to be the first to print what everybody inside that building already understood. A tower with 1 penthouse cannot house 2 reigns. Beyoncé spent 30 decades constructing the most disciplined empire in entertainment history to split the top floor. Now, follow me through the mechanics, because none of this is vapor. This is a sequence of small, silent, surgical adjustments, and each one alone means nothing. Bolted together, they form a corporate removal. Adjustment number 1, the Cowboy Carter after-party in Los Angeles. Rihanna was invited. Rihanna showed up. Rihanna was photographed at the entrance flanked by her security, and she, by the account of 2 separate attendees reportedly inside that ballroom, was parked at a table positioned so far outside Beyoncé's gravitational center that she was back in her car within 40 minutes. 40 minutes, a global icon at the party of the decade, gone before the second course of the evening's social ritual. That is not event planning. That is a message written in table linen. Adjustment number 2, the Fenty Beauty holiday push. For 4 straight years, Blue Ivy quietly acknowledged at least one Fenty launch each season. A like here, a repost there. Never a paid endorsement, never a headline, just the small, deliberate family signal that households at this altitude use to confirm the alliance still holds. This year, for the first time since 2021, the signal never came. No like, no share, total digital silence. And inside a household where nothing, and I mean nothing, happens by accident, silence is not absence. Silence is policy. And this, adjustment number 3, and this is the one that made me stop breathing for a second. An internal Roc Nation restructuring, reportedly distributed on August 9th, redrew the artist relations division. Rihanna's day-to-day liaison, a woman who has stood beside her since 2017, a woman who knows her schedule more intimately than she knows it herself, was gently relocated, not terminated, not publicly demoted, relocated. A different floor, a different roster, a different orbit entirely, and the individual who controls the hallway between Rihanna and the executive floor is a person Beyoncé personally vouched for, a person Beyoncé personally groomed, a person's allegiance has never once been up for discussion. Absorb that. This is not two friends drifting apart. This is a firewall being poured in concrete in real time, around her, above her, and most tellingly, without her ever being asked her opinion.
Let me slow down here because I owe you precision. Some of this story is confirmed, some is reported, some is alleged, and some is interpretation, and I will keep those lanes clearly marked the whole way through because you deserve exactly that. Here is what is confirmed. Rihanna has not appeared at a single Roc Nation brunch, gala, or private industry function in all of 2026. Not one. Here is what is reported, the Bel-Air disinvitation and the August 9th restructuring memo. Here is what is alleged, Beyoncé's direct involvement in that personnel shift. And here is what is interpretation, flagged plainly, the motive. Why now? Why this method? Why this temperature? And that question drags us straight back to Jay-Z's 9 words, because they finally, mercifully, resolve into focus. Months ago, the internet sat with that alleged whisper, protect her or someone else will. 9 words, and every commentator alive, myself included, assumed the someone else was a man, a rapper, a mogul, some predator circling Rihanna while Rocky was busy fumbling a festival microphone. But what if the entire internet read those 9 words upside down? What if the someone else was never a man at all? What if Sean Carter was telling A$AP Rocky that if he did not step up and defend Rihanna's position inside the Carter house, his own wife would escort her out of it? Because Beyoncé does not divide a spotlight. Beyoncé does not accommodate a second son, and Beyoncé has allegedly been architecting this precise moment ever since the afternoon Rihanna crossed a boundary Beyoncé had spent a decade orbiting. Here is the crossing the press never clocked. In 2022, Forbes certified Rihanna a billionaire. She did not simply get wealthy. Rihanna became the first black woman in music history to reach that figure through a brand she built with her own hands. Not inheritance, not marriage, not a catalog sale. Fenty, her name, her formulas, her shade range, and that achievement quietly carried her into a room Beyoncé had been circling from the hallway for years. Not richer, not more famous, but freer, more independent, less tethered to anyone's permission. And in a universe where power is measured by who needs whom, Rihanna abruptly needed Roc Nation far less than Roc Nation needed her. That is a threat in any empire, in any dynasty, in any marriage-adjacent business arrangement on this planet. And Beyoncé, of every human being alive, can smell a threat before the threat smells itself. Now the story accelerates, because the back channel whispers, and I want to be transparent, this is corridor talk, not court documents, say that at the very Bel-Air dinner Rihanna was scrubbed from, the remaining guests spent a targeted 20 minutes discussing Fenty Beauty's representation. Understand the context here. Fenty is not managed by Roc Nation. Fenty never was. Fenty runs through LVMH partnerships and Rihanna's private team inside the Fenty Corporation, and that arrangement has silently irritated the Roc Nation machine for years, because every other flagship name under that umbrella routes a slice of brand revenue back to the mothership. Rihanna routes nothing. Rihanna never has, and according to one person reportedly seated at that table, Beyoncé wondered aloud, in front of 11 witnesses, why such an arrangement was still being tolerated in 2026. Absorb that fully. That is not a financial inquiry. That is a cannon fired across a harbor, and it was fired in a room where Rihanna's chair had already been carried out. So where is A$AP Rocky while the walls move? Where is the partner who is supposed to plant himself in the doorway when the building starts pressing in on the mother of his children? He is performing. He is recording. He is doing precisely what he was doing the night he gripped a microphone and made comments about women that his PR team is still paying for. He is not watching the architecture. He is not reading the floor plan. He is not sitting her down at their kitchen counter and saying, "Something is shifting inside that building and we need to see it before it lands on us," because Rocky does not speak this language. Rocky was raised in Harlem, in a world where power is loud, disrespect is answered in public, and enemies knock before they enter. He does not possess the software to detect a freeze executed at Beyoncé's altitude. Rocky could not see this maneuver coming if it were beamed across the Manhattan skyline, and that is exactly what Sean Carter was warning him about. Protect her, or someone else will. Because Sean Carter knows his wife, and Sean Carter knows that once Beyoncé closes a chapter, the book does not reopen. Not for Rocky, not for Fenty, not for LVMH, not for the board, and not even for Jay-Z himself. Now let me hand you the 3 scenarios, because that is the only question every comment section on Earth is asking. Where does this go? What is the end game? Scenario 1. Rihanna exits in silence. No statement, no lawsuit, no tell-all interview. She simply allows her Roc Nation management representation to expire when the contract cycles, migrates her artist affairs to a major agency, or constructs her own boutique operation inside the Fenty Corporation, using executives she has spent 5 years personally cultivating, and never utters one public syllable about why. Beyoncé never has to speak either, and within half a decade, the world forgets she ever appeared on that roster. Clean, cold, complete.
Scenario 2, and this is the one that keeps me awake. Rihanna retaliates, but not in an interview, not in a statement, in an album. Because Rihanna has been guarding R9 for 6 years. 6! Every time a journalist raises it, she deflects, she laughs, she gestures toward her children, her lip gloss, anything except the record itself. And what if R9 was never a comeback project at all? What if R9 has always been an archive of evidence? What if she has been holding that record in a vault, waiting for a moment precisely like this one? A moment when she needs the entire planet to absorb her version of events without ever naming a single name. Because that is what artists at her altitude do, and that is specifically what she has done across her entire career. If R9 surfaces within the next 6 months, and any track mentions silence, sisterhood, crowns, or towers, every listener on Earth will understand exactly what they are hearing, and Beyoncé will understand it first. Scenario 3, the darkest read of all. Jay-Z is playing both ends of the table. Remember, Roc Nation's venture arm invested in Savage X Fenty back in 2018. The company still holds equity in a brand she allegedly never funnels a percentage through. So if Beyoncé completes the freeze on the artist management side, Jay-Z quietly consolidates his grip on the equity side. He keeps his stake, he keeps his checks, he keeps his personal channel to a billionaire mogul, and Beyoncé secures her uncontested tower. Everyone at the summit wins, while Rihanna, the woman who helped pour the building's foundation, is left standing on the sidewalk outside it, holding a practiced smile, fielding a phone that will not stop vibrating, because every editor on the East Coast already knows this story is detonating. Is any of this formally on the record? No, absolutely not.
Portions are theory. Portions are informed speculation. Portions are me at my desk connecting coordinates that maybe were never designed to connect in this exact sequence. But hear me on this. Every coordinate I have placed on the table tonight, the Bel-Air dinner, the after-party table placement, the Blue Ivy silence, the August 9th memo, the 2026 attendance blackout, the Fenty representation question, and 9 whispered words from a husband who never warns anybody twice. Every one of those coordinates exists somewhere in the public record. A photograph, a filing, a sourced quote, a leaked sentence. The coordinates are real. And when coordinates align this cleanly, that is not randomness. That is authorship. Here is the thread nobody wants to yank in public. Rihanna's brand is armored. It survived the darkest chapter of her personal life playing out on front pages. It survived a decade of tabloid warfare. It survived a fashion world comeback so flawlessly executed that editorial boards literally teach it. It survived a partner who cannot keep a microphone away from his own mouth. And it will survive this, because Rihanna does not need Roc Nation. Rihanna, truthfully, never entirely did. She needed a launch pad in 2005, and Sean Carter built her one, and she has repaid that debt every year since, in cultural gravity, in brand heat, in the glow she lends that entire organization every time she enters one of its rooms. Roc Nation needs her more than she needs Roc Nation, and Beyoncé, I suspect, knows it. And Beyoncé, I suspect, no longer cares. Because this stopped being about spreadsheets long ago. This is about a woman who has spent 30 years as the unquestioned monarch of every room she enters, glancing up 30 years in and noticing a second crown hanging in her own hallway with somebody else's initials engraved on it. And she is doing what monarchs do. Quietly, without a press release, without a fingerprint, arranging for that second crown to be relocated to a different address. Sit with that, because the real story is not that Beyoncé and Rihanna dislike each other. That is playground logic. That is comment section noise. The real story is that two of the most powerful women alive have shared one management structure for 2 decades, and one of them has silently decided the arrangement is finished, while the man in the middle, the man who could have negotiated peace, the man whose 9 whispered words were supposed to prevent exactly this outcome, is the same man who signed both of their careers into existence 21 years ago, standing in the tower he built, watching his 2 brightest stars refuse, wordlessly, to share the same sky, and doing, as ever, at the decisive moment, absolutely nothing anyone will ever hear. Now here is the detail almost nobody has stitched into the picture. Study Rihanna's public appearances across the last 6 months. Replay the interviews. Freeze the red carpet footage. Listen to how she speaks about Roc Nation today versus how she spoke about it 5 years ago. The warmth is gone from the vocabulary. What remains is courtesy, professionalism, careful attorney-approved acknowledgement, but the sisterhood language has evaporated, and it has been evaporating for at least 18 months. That is not mood. That is not coincidence. That is a woman who has already packed every box inside her mind and is simply waiting for the correct hour to carry them through the front door. Because Rihanna does not react. Rihanna prepares. And if Beyoncé believes she is making the opening move of this game, Beyoncé may want to scan the board again, because she has been playing strategy games since she was a teenager, and she does not lose contests she has been training for since 2022.
And that is what I keep returning to. Rihanna's silence right now, and it is a deafening silence, is accomplishing more than any press statement ever could. No attendance, no comment, no like, no repost, no subtweet about Beyoncé, about Roc Nation, about Cowboy Carter, about any memo. And if you understand anything about this woman, you understand her silence is never confusion, never surrender, never defeat. Her silence is measurement. She is observing, she is counting, she is choosing the hour. And when Rihanna finally moves, she will move the way she has always moved. Quietly, precisely, and with devastating accuracy. And the first person to feel the shockwave will not be Rocky, it will not be Jay-Z. It will be the woman who believed a dinner invitation and a personnel memo were enough to shift a billionaire off her own foundation. Visualize that instant. Beyoncé in her office, her studio, wherever her command center lives, reading the first notification that Rihanna has made her countermove, and watching for one split second the color drain from a face that has not lost a public confrontation in a decade. Because Beyoncé is brilliant, Beyoncé is disciplined, Beyoncé is among the most tactically gifted figures in the history of American entertainment. But Beyoncé has never fought a war against a woman whose brand answers to no label, no board, no boss. And Rihanna is that woman. A woman with $1 billion of her own money and a passport that can carry her beyond the blast radius before the headlines finish printing. Everything else is theater lighting. Let me leave you with the piece that will outlive this entire news cycle. Beneath the memos and the table maps and the whispered warnings sits a far older story. A story about what happens when two women, each untouchable in their own right, are forced by circumstance to shelter under a single umbrella for 20 years. And what happens is what has always happened in every dynasty, in every empire, in every glass tower since towers were invented. One of them eventually walks out. And the one who walks out is never the one who lost. The one who walks out is the one who had already outgrown the building. That is Rihanna. That has always been Rihanna. And Beyoncé, for all her discipline, all her precision, all her 3 decades of flawless strategy, may have just authored the first true miscalculation of her career. Because you cannot freeze out a woman who has already outgrown the room. You can only shorten her walk to the exit. And Rihanna is already holding the door. If you stayed with me this far, thank you, sincerely. Now I need your read in the comments, right now, because this channel lives on your sharpest thinking. Do you believe Beyoncé deliberately engineered Rihanna's removal, or is half the internet hallucinating a war inside a routine corporate shuffle? Were Jay-Z's 9 words meant for A$AP Rocky, or were they about his own wife from the very beginning? And is R9 a comeback album, or has it been a vault of receipts waiting for exactly this moment all along? I am reading every single comment on this video, and the sharpest takes get pinned to the top. Hit like if this reframed the story for you, subscribe if you have not yet, and share this with whoever in your circle has been obsessed with the Beyoncé and Rihanna saga for weeks, because this story is not ending, it is barely through its opening act. And if you want to know what allegedly unfolded in the 72 hours after that Bel-Air dinner, the private call between Rihanna and one specific Roc Nation executive that reportedly rerouted everything coming next, tap the video on your screen right now, because that chapter connects coordinates this one could not touch. Once you hear the rest, you will never hear a Beyoncé rollout the same way again. Neither did Rihanna, neither will you. I will see you in the next one.